Okay, I just came across this study and I love it. I love this. Are you a person who apologizes too much? Because if you are, that's great. You're doing it right. This new study shows that when you give out lots of apologies, they don't get watered down. They all hold the same amount of value, no matter how many times you've apologized before. When people see somebody who apologizes left, right, and center, and then they get an apology from them, it's worth just as much as somebody who never apologizes finally giving an apology. So if you're the type of person that doesn't apologize ever, why? You're not, it's not like you're saving up your superpowers. You're just being a jerk. So the way they did the study is first they told a story. They had a bunch of people who, logged in online and they read the story. And in the story, a person goes through a typical week. Now, in one version of the story that some people saw, the person apologizes 12 times over the course of the week to different people in their lives, their boss and stuff like that. And in the other version, the person doesn't apologize at all, has exactly the same experiences, but never apologizes. And then people were asked, well, how do you perceive the focal character of this story? And not surprisingly, when people heard a version that had lots of apologies in it, they thought of the person as warmer than the version that had no apologies. And they thought of them as more moral than the version that doesn't have any apologies. So you look better to other people when you're an apologizer. That's the first piece of it. But then there was this second part where they said, okay, now imagine you and this person have a conflict where they forgot to show up for a meeting and you're mad at them. And they had three different scenarios. Either the person didn't apologize. How does that make you feel? Or they gave an apology, but it was a pretty weak one. Like, I lost track of time. Okay, how do you feel? And then the third one was like a sincere, I am so sorry, that wasn't respectful of your time, that kind of an apology. And they asked people how they felt about the apologies. And not surprisingly, the apologies work when they're sincere, but there's no effect about that week before where the person was either an apologizer or not. No matter what their background is in terms of how much they're apologizing, an apology works. It just works really well. So there's no reason to hold them back. Go ahead and use them because they still hold their value. There was a second piece of the study which got a little bit more personal, which was they recruited people who were in a romantic relationship. And they said, okay, your romantic partner, how much apologizing do they do? Do they apologize every week? Do they rarely apologize? Filled out this whole survey. And then they went through a scenario where they said, okay, imagine that you're at a party and your significant other, you overhear them saying something about your personal beliefs in a disparaging way. And it's quite offensive. So they owe you an apology and you call them on it. So now how do you feel when your partner either doesn't apologize? They say, well, it wasn't a big deal. You weren't there. Something like that. Or how do you feel if they give you a bad apology, like, well, I guess I'm sorry you feel angry, that kind of an apology. And then the third kind was like a really sincere apology that says, like, I obviously hurt your feelings, I'll never do it again, that kind of thing, like understanding what they did wrong. So looking at those different scenarios, they were able to show yet again that the partners who never apologize don't have any more value in their apologies than the partners who are regular apologizers. So again, whether you're talking about a hypothetical person in a story or you're talking about your actual partner, how much you apologize does not influence what your apologies are worth. There is one caveat, though. The one caveat is that when people apologize all the time, sometimes they're seen as a little bit weaker, but only if their apologies are bad ones. If they give lots of very weak apologies, like I'm sorry you feel that way, stuff like that, then they come off as weaker. But if they give sincere apologies all the time, they don't come off as any weaker. So there's really no downside, at least none that they found in this paper, to being a person who apologizes when you think you've done something wrong or where you think an apology will help a social situation go better. So there's your advice. And by the way, the last thing I'll say, no effective gender whatsoever. People's perception of apologizers, it's no different. And the way they perceive the apology itself, no different. So there's a characterization that women apologize a lot more than men do. Whether that's true or not, they don't even get into. But nonetheless, this is true for everybody. This is true for men and for women. So anyway, take that. And I'm sorry you had to sit so long through this version of my video. Is that sincere? I meant it sincerely. I won't do it again. Sorry.